If you are easily offended, please leave and don't come back. The views, opinions, and statements from this podcast are by no one. I repeat, by no one. They are not real, and everything is completely made up. This is for entertainment purposes only. The people in this podcast are not doctors, lawyers, or health professionals. They barely graduated high school. It's not that serious. Enjoy the show and have a nice day. Okay, welcome to another episode of Vernon's podcast. Today is a special interview podcast. What do I call this? Special episode with a special guest. She is a young indigenous woman. Well, more specifically, a clean show woman. She goes by the name of Jamie Wetrade Stevenson. Jamie um, is a business owner at the young age of 24, I want to say. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Jamie has a photography business and as well as a podcast. And I'm sure amongst other things, or maybe in the future as well, because I really believe that this is just a start. So, Jamie, um, say something.
Hi. No, Vernon, thank you so much for asking me to be on your podcast. It's so special. And like when I saw that you were doing all the interviews and things like that, like it was so cool to see. And I'm so proud of you and like how you're doing with this. It's like really, really cool. So I'm very honored to be here and just to be able to chat with you today. I think it's gonna be so much fun.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. No, it's actually my honor, like that you're doing this, taking some time out of your busy schedule. I honestly didn't really think it was gonna happen. I kind of just slid right in your or sent an email. It's like you see what would happen, see what you would do, and thank God you responded and actually said yes. So thank you again for that.
Amazing.
Um, I've been I kind of I listened to your last episode on your podcast. Great job, by the way. I I uh, I also checked in on your first episode of your podcast. Big difference. Like production went up, like the sound quality and just you like when your delivery and stuff. It's great. So I think I listening in your podcast, I had heard you say that you went to Gamity.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, just a little bit ago, I was doing some travel. So I was in Gamity just recently, doing some photography work. So it's been really fun. And it was my first time visiting in the summer. So it's gorgeous. It's a very gorgeous place. And I definitely like would 1000% visit again. I'm visiting again later this summer, and then I'm visiting Wakwati again for the first time. Or
Oh,
yeah, for the first time.
okay. Well, I love Gamty. It's beautiful in summertime.
Mm-hmm.
I went there. I think it was like about 10 years ago. I want to say it was
Cool.
for that MBA program. I went there to be a group leader.
Nice.
I don't think they made the right choice, but I mean, I was,
I'm sure you did great.
I was a mess. Like, I think like that was just like, I was coming off of like my first failed year in college. And then I was still figuring my shit out and still drinking so much, didn't really know what I was doing or yeah. And then I just kind of, well, the thing is, like, I'm good with interviews. That's the thing, and so I kind of made it seem like there's rainbows shining out of my ass, and I said that I was like so interested in like culture and traditions and being outside and doing all these things. No, 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 no. That wasn't. I was just looking for a job. You know what I mean? And then I think that I once I got there and was doing the training for team leader, I think they started to figure out like, oh, I think we made a mistake, but it was too
Oh
late.
my
I
God.
got fired. Anyways, I ended up getting
No.
fired from that job too because I didn't go on that canoe trip. I guess it's a requirement. Anyway,
Mm.
Gamty. Gamty, for the listeners who don't know what Gamty is a clean show community. I think it's about, I want to say like what, 300 kilometers north of Beshiko. Beshiko,
Depending on your plane ride, it's either 50 minutes or like 45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Jamie and I are both Clean Show. We're indigenous, and we belong to Treaty 11 of the Northwest Territories in Canada. And Jamie has travels photography, right? So,
Yeah. So
and I also
it
heard you.
was only it was sorry.
Oh no, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it was only last year in 2021 when I started doing a lot of travel for photography. And the first time I ever actually got any paid travel, so meaning, they were able to pay my invoice and also pay for my travel on top of accommodations and stuff like that, was actually in 2019, and it was to Delaney. And so the first time I had ever visited Delaney was in 2019, and it was to photograph their grads. And it was a beautiful time. I just did headshots for them, but we did like a couple of other photos. And so it was really nice to visit. I was there for about 4 days, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And then that's when I realized I, could travel for my work.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of made it a goal to like want to travel a lot more. But last year I traveled a lot for my photography business, and it's been such a beautiful experience. I've learned a lot, and it's just like so liberating, I think, to kind of be able to say, hey, like I work a job that like I'm in, I love doing, and also it pays me well, and it also, pays for my travel and stuff too. So it's some exciting times, and I'm definitely excited to see where else it goes.
I'm happy for you, and I'm excited too. You're so young, and you're doing all of these things already. It's insane, you know. So it's just good on you. And with the traveling part, so you being able to travel and you getting it paid for and stuff, that shows that you're doing something right, eh? Because
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, I was kind of in the same boat as you when you were like thinking, like, oh my God, like they hired me of all people. Like, sometimes I think that, and I think it's really the imposter syndrome that comes into play, especially when we live in the North with so many other talented, like, artists and photographers and all of this stuff. And I'm like, out of all of those people, like I get to work with some of these amazing organizations, and like I have amazing clients under my belt, and I care about them so much. And so it's like really, it really amazes me all the time to like be like, oh my God, like I get to travel for this. And like, they're hiring me out of all people. And it's like, and it's not so much that I doubt my abilities. It's just more so like, it's just the imposter syndrome. It just never goes away. And I think it's just like learning to live with it, and like learning to like just cope with it in like certain areas of our lives. And like, there's always going to be somebody out there who's better than you, who's had more experience than you. And I think it's just always taking the opportunity to learn from your mistakes, but also to like, just always being a student first, I think too is really important. And like doing research on your own and stuff like that is also really important. And I definitely would not be where I am right now if it wasn't for the internet, honestly. Like that's where I taught myself how to do business. I taught myself how to do photography, was all through YouTube and literally just Google search.
yeah, I think that Google, our YouTube, and yeah, Google, that's like our new teacher now, eh? Like everything, I YouTube everything. That's just how it is now. That's how I learned how to do this podcast too, as well. And just seeing other people do it, and I was just like, yeah, I can do that too. Like what? So I just went and got the equipment and went for it. And anyway, so back to the photography thing. So right now is probably a really busy time for you, right? With graduation and all.
Yeah, so it's always super busy, but definitely the summers, like towards the end of the school year, is always a lot busier. Not just with graduations, but with organizations, like, going out and like doing more things outside and stuff like that. So it's been really interesting. I also have a couple of weddings this summer that I'm photographing that is also going to take me to some places. I'm visiting Toledo for the first time, and I'm there to photograph a wedding. So that's going to be exciting. And then I am doing a couple of other things like visiting smaller communities like throughout the Cleveland region, and then possibly going out to Fort Simpson and things like that. So
Okay.
it's going to be busy. It's going to be fun though.
So you mentioned a lot of firsts. First to
Yeah.
Wetrade and first to Delaney, was it? And so obviously your business is opening a lot of opportunities for you, like a lot of doors for you. Um would you say that maybe has it ever maybe closed some?
That's a good question. Um, no, I don't think it's closed doors for me per se. I think if anything, it's just opened up more connections and opened up more relationship building and things like that with organizations and people in general. But I would say like, it's helped me determine what I want for myself in terms of what I want for my future and what I want to do, like, moving forward and in the near future and things like that. So, it's I wouldn't say it's closed doors, but it's definitely taught me a lot more about like what I want in my life and how I want to, just move forward with media, like social media and like my business and like where I see that going and all of that stuff. So, if anything, it's just been like more of like a realization on my part.
Okay, so the reason why I say that and the reason what I was getting into was because like I feel like this I'm looking at it with my lens. It's like I'd say like say if I'm like a business or like someone I'm an employer, and I see someone like you who has a presence online and has a big voice and has a lot of eyes on her. Um, I would say that that could be like a little risky hiring somebody like that because let's say they do something that you don't like or agree with, and then you go online and
Sure. I
like
mean, like
kind of
I
like just like air them out or whatever a little bit or maybe something like that, and it might be like okay, like I don't want to like get too close to her because she might kind of put us on blast or something.
I understand that. And, I think although I do share a part of my life online, I'm also very respectful of people I've worked with, either professionally through just like as an individual or, as a photographer. And, you know, I I think my thing with like sharing my social, like sharing a part of my life online is also I want people to feel more connected to me as a business owner because I'm very much like the face of my business and I am my business. My business is me. It's like a part of me. And so I think if anything, the people that choose to work with me and choose to hire me, they would already know who I am on some level, and because of my social media and my presence, like I would only want them to feel like they are more connected to me as a person as well, and instead of just on a professional level on some sort of personal level through social media. I know it can also be challenging too because like I do hear you, like I do understand like what you mean by like hiring an employee and things like that, but I'm hoping that with my business I'm fully like self-employed, like I don't need to rely on anyone for my income, which is like a really a big thing. I'm coming up on my first year a full-time photographer, and I think with that being a full-time creative, I do have the creative freedom to really like explore what I want and to, do what I want on behalf of my business, but also on just behalf of myself. Like I don't have anyone that I look up to like as a boss or supervisor that I have to worry about too much. Sure, I still have to worry about my professionalism and things like that, like in some aspects due to my business, but on a greater level, like I would love to pursue social media and like see where that takes me as well. But right now I'm not worried about it, like I'm just if if my social media presence like bothers people, it bothers them and that's more on them than it is on me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like goes back to the thing. You're not responsible for how other people feel. I mean, just as long as you're not like breaking any universal laws, you're not purposely like trying to offend anybody. You're just being you, and if they don't like that, they don't like that. Yeah. So, hey, and oh yeah, I was gonna go on since. Do you see like since now that you're self-employed and have been for a while, friends and stuff? Like, do they kind of be like, do you have any positions open in or something?
Um, no, honestly, like I've tried to hire an assistant last year and it just didn't work out. So I never went through with that. But um, I've never had anyone like, yeah, ask me for employment work. I've always just contracted people out because being a sole entrepreneurship, or sorry, being a sole proprietor, you can't necessarily like be an employer per se, but if you were like an employer to have employees on a payroll, so like if I had a full-time assistant, they would need to be on my payroll, but as a sole proprietor, I can't do that legally. So what I do instead is that I just contract people out. So for example, like my makeup artist, like I contract her out, meaning she sends me an invoice. I pay for her services the same way that I pay for anyone to come into the studio and do like carpentry work. They send me an invoice that's like contracting them out. So I do that. And honestly, like I've looked at getting like an online assistant, so like a virtual assistant through a website that I found that's actually indigenous owned. So like it's really cool that there's people out there that do this kind of stuff. And so I believe it's called something guru. Something guru. I forget what it's called, but when I find it, I'll send it over to you and then you can plug it in or something. But basically it's a virtual assistant site where you have multiple virtual assistants that can do different things. And so I was looking at that for a little bit, and that is something I could totally do. But at the end of the day, like, it all goes back to like training people how to do the business, or not to do the business, but to be like your second person, like to be like your little mini you, right? It's like you want to be able to train them to do exactly how you do things.
Yeah, how you would do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to me, I always found that super challenging to be like, okay, when do I have the time to really show somebody like the ins and outs of like my space, but also like my brain, and how I work and how I like do certain things. And so because of that I always found that personally challenging to like always to like potentially bring somebody on. So yeah, right now, like, yeah, I've hired friends and family to like do certain work for me, like painting my studio or like, moving boxes and things like that, but nothing super crazy like being a full-time employee or anything like that.
Okay. Also too, with that being said, with the photography, I remember seeing you probably like in starting times, maybe like 2 years ago. Is that how long has it been actually, like, since you
I started photography 10 years ago as a hobby. I started when I was 14, and that was the first time I ever picked up a camera. And I remember I picked it up for the first time through a friend. And she was like, "Hey, I've seen your photos." And I was just posting like photos from my iPhone and stuff like that on my Facebook, like nothing crazy. If anything, the editing part is what really intrigued me into photography, because I was editing my photos on my iPhone, and the iPhone quality at the time was like not the best as it is today.
yeah.
But yeah, she approached me and she was like, "Hey, I have a camera that you can use. Take photos of me if you want, and like I want to enter into this contest." And I was like, "Okay." So I told her, I was like, "Just so you know, I don't know how to use like this camera." She was like, "It's okay, like, just play around with it." So I really like appreciate her for giving me the opportunity to, first of all, take photos of her, but also like to use her equipment for the first time. And after I held the DSLR for the first time, I immediately bought one of my own, and I was like, okay, this is it. Like I want to do this all the time. And so I remember I kind of professionally started like I started posting photos. I started taking, working with people very early on. But I did take about a year off of photography, like just in general. Like I didn't think I was actually going to turn it into a business ever. And like it was from when I was 16 to 17. And so I kind of just stopped doing photography. But I was always, people always came up to me and they're always like, "Hey, can you do this and do this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't do business anymore. Like I don't do photography anymore." And then I quickly realized, after going through some going through some trauma and things like that at such a young age, I was like, wait, I want to explore photography again and I want to pick it up again. So at 17, I started doing some photos and I was like, okay, actually, I really want to do this like for real this time. And so I created a business out of it. And at 18, I started my business and we've been in business ever since. But only went full time last year. So that's really exciting.
That is. At what like what was that one photo that you felt like took it to the next level? Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of got you like a lot of like traction online and made like more like clients come in.
That is such a great question. Um, Honestly, it might be a little cliche, but it was probably the photo. We call it the Nomad, and it was the photo of Karen, and that was the one that and so Karen Murray, who is a friend of mine, really good friend of mine, but she's also a makeup artist, and her and I do a lot of creative work together, and we've always like just, you know, really connected on that level when it came to photography and like her skills as a makeup artist and a creative like director. She is just so talented. And so we went out, we had this idea to do like kind of this shoot to kind of be more connected to nature and to represent nature, but also to represent like, you know, just our ways of living, I guess, and just people. And so we called it the Nomad. And so this photo, I submitted it to a gallery in like Whitehorse. And so the photo was up in Whitehorse for a little bit, part of this exhibit. And then they submitted their exhibit to Toronto. And
Oh,
in Toronto, they had this bigger exhibit. And so this photo practically made it on like a billboard. And so it was huge. It was like this huge photo that was on King Street and West, I think. And I remember somebody had sent the photo over to Karen, and I didn't even know that it was up. So that was like the craziest part is I found all of this out through social media and nobody told me that it was going to be displayed, which is not a bother to me at all. But I was like, wow, to see like my photo up on like practically like a billboard like that and one of my favorite photos ever, like really made me like feel really proud of myself and like also proud of like all of the work that goes into this stuff. Like to have it be recognized on a different level was very beautiful to us. And I definitely think like, you know, we bring a different twist and a different look to the table when it comes to photography and creative work. Like, and I think, and this definitely would not have happened if it wasn't for Karen. You know, I have to give like lots of props to her. Like, she's always, you know, pushed me out of my comfort zone as a creative artist, but she's always been like somebody who's like, let's do this and let's do that. And is always down to create. And because of that, I'm so appreciative. Because then I found my love for creative art and like just being super open to that. But yeah, I would say the Nomad photo. And if you like search it up or whatever, I could also send you some links, but there were some like articles that were written about it. But yeah, no, it was super cool.
where can we find it? Like on your social media page or like a social media page, like Instagram, Facebook, where?
I have it on my Instagram, but I'll send you a couple links later too. So
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'll put it under the whatever the info of this page, or maybe I'm putting in the comments. So with that too, with the whole like being in the creative space, I feel like what I'm starting to like, I'm stepping into it a little bit now with this, and I find that I make the best content when I'm like doing something that makes me uncomfortable, or maybe I might feel like a little like weird about it, and then I just send it out, and then it just works. You know what I mean? I think that you grow more and you kind of, I guess, flourish more when you step out of your comfort zone and just kind of learn how to accept the differences, I guess, like in who you are, and just kind of be accepting of like that you don't know everything, you know what I mean? And you just kind of just go with it and see what happens. And it's great. It's amazing. And
exactly. You know, our comfort zones are beautiful, safe spaces, but if we're always in our comfort zone, I personally think like if I personally think if we're always in our comfort zone, then there's no chances of growth in any aspect. So, we always kind of have to step out of our comfort zone every once in a while to like really, learn more about ourselves, but also to gain experiences to be like, okay, like now I know for next time, or to just be able to experience it, because like at the end of the day, like life is so short, and it's just so, and it can also be very beautiful. So it's just taking on like every opportunity as an experience to either learn something from it or to grow from it, or I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, comfort zones are beautiful, but they're definitely danger zones too. Because then you just never grow sometimes if you're always in it.
Yeah, I think that being in your comfort zone is kind of like a creative killer and a motivation killer too as well. Because it's just like, why you're not gonna feel like you need to do anything, because you're gonna constantly be like, oh, I'm okay in this. I'm okay. I'm good here. I don't need anything else. But how do you, like, you don't know that you need something if you don't go out and try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, one of the things I always tell people too is like, you just honestly have to do it. Like, there's never going to be a perfect day. There's never going to be a perfect time or a perfect person or anything. If you want to do something, like, you might as well just do it now. And like, it's okay if it's not perfect the first time, or the first couple of times, like, as long as you're getting it and as long as you're picking up like, the little tricks and whatever, then it's going to happen over time. And I think, like, if anything, consistency is really, really key to anything. And I mean, like, I I was really consistent with my photography business after going professional when I was 18, for a long time. And now it's brought me to such a beautiful, beautiful, like, spot in my life. And it's only going to grow from here. And like, I'm super excited to see what happens. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely would not have achieved this if I was in my comfort zone.
No, 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 no. So yeah, with that too, you said your growth. So where, like, me looking at it, because from like when I started like paying attention and stuff, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. How is there a number? Is there like an end game? Like, where are you planning on taking all of this?
You know, I've learned very quickly about myself through therapy, but also through like talking with friends and stuff like that. My my mental health is the worst when I think about the future for too long. Like, I've thought about, trust me, I've thought about, okay, what am I going to do when I'm 80 years old? Like, am I still going to be doing boudoir photography? Like, am I still going to be doing that? I've thought about that, but I think it's like also being financially smart in the sense, like, okay, like, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be responsible for your own setup. So like, it's not like a full-time job like with the government per se, like where they kind of set you up on like life insurance, and they set you up on, and sometimes they can set you up on like an RSVP or whatever, or like a TSFA or whatever. Like, so basically, when I think of an end game, I don't think about like, okay, like I need to hit a certain spot with numbers or anything like that for me to feel satisfied. At the end of the day, with the type of work I do and also the type of like social media I'm getting into, I only ever want, my presence in anyone's life or online to be a place where it makes other people feel good about themselves, and also, in some ways might help them as much as it does help me. So there's never going to be, I think, potentially a number per se, or like an ending to what I want to do potentially. But I definitely do, I do think it's smart to also be like financially smart as well, to kind of set yourself up for when, you want to retire or anything like that. Because like, as an entrepreneur, you really have to think about that stuff, right? You really have to think about, okay, so I'm not, employed with an employer, so I'm not paying into life insurance anymore right now, or things like that, or like a pension or things like that. Those are things I have to kind of do on my own, which is a big learning curve, but it's also, you know, it's a hassle at first, but when later down the line, you're really going to thank yourself for setting those things up in the first place. Because even if I were to ever get employed again, by an employer or anything like that, at least I have this part of that part of that stuff set up already. So I can just kind of present that to them. Then they don't also have to do anything either. So it's also things like that. So I think, yeah, at the end of the day, I just want people to feel super comfortable, super happy with like me as a person, and I guess like with their experience with me and my business, but also with my presence online. I definitely only want to make people feel really good about themselves.
Yeah. I think that's what's going on here. Like, I think that especially like being from where we are, in the Queensborough region, right now is like the best time to be a creative and an entrepreneur and a business, like what the fuck you call that? Like to be like self-employed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because there's so much you can do anything. You can go into photography, you can go like into podcasts, you can sell some things online, you can go into clothes. What else is it? Beadwork's like really taking off. There's so much people and so much of my friends are doing it and they're doing amazing. I look at their work and I'm like, how the fuck do you even do that? That's crazy. And also too, like, is there like, would you think like with for like the newcomer in photography, would you like have any advice, like maybe something that they might not hear because maybe it's them stepping into it, they might think, oh, I could just take a picture, edit it, done. Or is there like some things that you had to learn yourself?
Yeah, I had to learn everything myself, but basically everything that I learned was all through YouTube and all through like literally just looking up like, oh, how do you work a camera? Where do you edit these photos? Like being able to, I think being able to have the drive to just do the research yourself is so important. Like there's not going to be anyone that hands you this, you know, handbook per se of how to do things exactly. And also everyone's different. Everyone's going to want to do something different too. So like it took me a long time to like find my niche per se, but also to find my style of photography, my, the way that I edit, the way that I work, like even my business aspect, like all of the stuff I've learned over time. And it's not perfect, but it's like definitely something that works right now. And these are things that I've done research on my own. So if at the end of the day, like if there's somebody new that is interested in wanting to do photography, for example, or any type of creative outlet, like if they want to do it and they want to, kind of take it to the next level, like maybe getting their business license or anything like that, it's literally as simple as just Googling it. And, it's definitely like, but it's definitely like, it can be challenging sometimes because because there's so many different answers, online, but it's just kind of trusting your instinct at the end of the day. But also, I always love to tell people, especially like, if they're getting into photography or anything like that, like my line is always open too. Like I'm willing to share what I've learned over the last few years, and the knowledge I picked up, but also like at the end of the day, we're all very different. So it's just taking the time to do your own research too, which is so important.
Yeah. And I feel like too, with the whole like new people stuff, have you like ever felt like saying like somebody steps into your lane,
No,
photography, and you're just kind of think,
I think, I've heard the word oversaturated quite a bit in the industry that I'm in. But I think as long as you continue just doing a good job and you continue being, kind of trying to be the best version of yourself, like there's always going to be people that support you no matter what. So I've never felt like anyone was kind of stepping into anyone's lane. If anything, like I always support other people who are getting into the creative industry because it's so hard to do and it takes a lot of courage and bravery, and I just support them. I can only, that's all I can really do from afar. and as you know, and just like admire their work, because again, at the end of the day, everyone is different. You're going to get hired for different reasons and different styles. Like also, you know, clients also have different styles too, and like they gravitate towards one person more than another because of the way that their work looks. And also, word of mouth is very, very important. And so, you know, when you've worked with a lot of clients, like, you know, when they talk about their experience with you, that gets places. Like a lot of my, for example, boudoir clients, at least 75% of them are all word of mouth. And it's all just because like their friends did a session with me, and then they talked about it with their friends, and then their friends want to do it, and all of that stuff. And it's a beautiful thing. And to see like how a community like Yellowknife can support that and can support somebody like in their creative field, or even just like the North in general, you know, it's so beautiful. So I do definitely applaud anyone who does step into this field of work. It's hard to do, but you know, it takes that courage and bravery. And so I, you know, support that.
Yeah, and with that too, like I don't think that even if somebody were to step in your lane, it's like say for me, like somebody would start a podcast, whatever, but then you of course everybody already had this. This is new, right? But then it's
Mhm.
I feel like there's like room for everybody. And
Yeah.
sometimes
And
you
again, everyone has a niche, right? So
like
everyone's going to
nobody
go to
can do.
someone.
Like
Yeah.
um nobody does like nobody takes like photos like you, nobody does the things that you do. And same with me too, like with the whole podcast thing, like I like feel like, you know, like my energy and just I don't know what I bring to the table. It's just you can't, I mean, everybody has their own kind of like niche thing, and like, you know, just the kind of energy they bring, and their personality and stuff. And so it's just, you just, everybody, there's room for everybody to grow, right?
Mhm. And I think that's also kind of the beauty of like social media. Social media is not going anywhere anytime soon either, you know, and it's such a crazy way to, not crazy, but like it's such a unique way to reach millions of people into, you know, in just from the comfort of your own home sometimes, you know, and like, and to see people really grow on social media and really like reach that point, it's really, you know, again, applauding to them, you know, because it's like definitely, it's scary because you do have to put yourself out there a little bit. You do have to be vulnerable, and you do have to make those connections. Also, it's really hard, I think, as a single person or as just an individual person to entertain millions of people, you know? So, you know, the big YouTubers, the big like social media podcasters or whoever, you know, it takes a lot of, I can't even imagine like how much brain space that takes up, you know, and how much they have to go through in terms of like having to create something new all the time to keep people entertained, but also to keep their jobs technically. Because like if they're not creating, you know, they're not putting out content all the time, then that kind of loses their income unless they're like really big to a point where they don't necessarily need to be posting all the time anymore. But that also takes a lot of work and encouragement to do.
Yeah. And I think that too, it's like constantly like being like, what's the next thing? Like content, what um but I say like the way with me, the way I approach it is just, it's I make it like simple. Like I that's how like I usually like to live my life, really try to make things simple and easy, just kind of just attack it right away. And like for this interview, for instance, I went and did my homework. I went to go check out your podcast, listen to it, checked out your social media presence. And so it's just doing the actual work. You know what I mean? Like doing what you're supposed to do. But even if you don't know where to start or how to do anything, it's all on YouTube. Go ask around, ask anybody. And with you, I feel like that's just like, you found something that you actually like doing, you get paid for it, and you work for yourself, and you're your own boss. Nobody tells you to, there's no strings, there's no puppet master or anything. And I think that's just like inspiring. And I think that that's like something that, well, for me, like I feel like this, if I could fucking do this for a living and not have to work, that would be like a dream, right? And so it's glad to see. I'm like so like happy to see that somebody who's from the same place as me reached the point that you have. And congratulations on everything.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you saying, like, seeing somebody who is also from the same place as you. Like, I've always told this to people growing up, like, if at the end of the day, like, youth in our community can see, other people who are from the same community as them, people who look like them, people who grew up like them, doing things like this, and if that can inspire them to want to pursue that, then that's everything, and like at the end of the day, I think personally for me, like I only ever want to really make, again, people feel really comfortable and happy, but also I also want to inspire. I also want people to be like, hey, if she can do it, I can do it too. And like that's all that ever really matters. Cause there's um so many talented people in our region, and also just like there's so much creativeness there, and like I think it just takes the right person, or even the right thing, the right inspiration to somebody to be like, wait, I I want to do this and I want to explore this. And at the end of the day, again, life is so short. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it works and it picks up, great, and they love it, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of like just start. Like if you want to do it, then just do it. Like I feel like with photography, somebody let's be honest, everybody does some level of photography. Like they take selfies and then go on put all those damn filters all over it and stuff. And with for podcasting and stuff, like you go on TikTok and to have everybody's like talking at their phone and stuff. That's basically what it is, right? So it's not even you're already doing it. You might as well just take it up a notch and take it up a notch and kind of explore more into it. And I think that with this whole like it seems like there's like a whole new like trend of people just creating things, especially indigenous people. Um, I so again, thank you for doing this. And would you have any say advice for any like young clean show or indigenous women who might want to like I guess start their own business or maybe just maybe like life advice really?
Yeah. So as a 24-year-old, I don't know if I could give life advice really well.
I think
But as like, somebody who's been in the business and like in the business for a while, when I first started, I was 18 again. So when I first started, there was not really anyone else around me that I knew personally that I felt comfortable enough to go and ask questions to. And also like there wasn't any type of programming. So now, for example, like entrepreneurs, like programs like entrepreneurs where they teach you the ins and out of business, they teach you how to like really get your brain into like that business mindset, but also like they're so encouraging. They give you resources and the opportunity to really grow and pursue, and also they give you connections that will hopefully transfer into your business one day. And programs like that, like if that had existed when I was starting out, that would have been gold for me, because then they teach you everything and they teach you kind of like everything that you need to know. But for me, when I was learning, like again, I had to learn everything on my own. I had to learn how to, I had to even like teach myself, okay, what are the questions am I even supposed to be asking? What am I supposed to be looking for here? And I think if you're really serious about something, like it'll just come, and like you'll just like do the research and it'll just come naturally to you. But again, like it is also like at the end of the day, like if you're really passionate about something, you really want to make it work, you're gonna find a way to make it happen. And so I think like with programs today, like if anyone today was like, hey, I want to start this, I would start out by looking at courses online. If they wanted to start a podcast, maybe look up a YouTube video, and then if it interests you enough, look up some courses that could be beneficial. Or like if it was like to start YouTube, look up some YouTube videos on how to edit video and things like that. Or if it was like photography, simple as that, like, how do you edit a photo, things like that. Find people that like spark your interest a bit more, who know how to like really entertain but also educate at the same time, which I always found like it was super challenging at first, because I would find these YouTube videos, but they were all just so monotone and just like a bit boring. But then I eventually found creators online who made kind of the boring stuff fun. They made it like so that it could be like, okay, actually it's not as boring as I might think it is. But now with things like entrepreneurs, like programs like that they offer, now I would say, okay, if they ever were to offer another program again, like, or in the near future, I'm sure that they're going to be offering lots. I was just part of their digital cohort program, and it was phenomenal. Like they really bring a lot to the table in terms of like supports and resources. I would say look at programs like that first. Look at things like entrepreneurs to really like step up your game. And also you get to be in a room with other fellow Indigenous creators who are in the same boat as you, and you also get the support of the staff and like the people that they bring on. And without some of their help, like I would not like know some of the new information I know today. And like they really like were so there for me. And so like any advice I'd give is like, start there, like, depending on where you're from, depending on where you're at geographic wise. If you have access to the internet, you can literally do anything. So it's like you can learn a new hobby in a day, so it's just, again, trying to find those right questions to ask. And even if you don't even know what to ask yourself, it's literally typing in like, okay, I want to start my own business. How do I do it? Like, it's literally as simple as that.
Yeah, and you said teaching a while back, and then so workshop, right? You're teaching a workshop. Are you what?
I did do a couple of workshops. Yeah. So like last year, I've taught a few workshops.
What does that
And
like? What does that entail? Like, what do you have to do?
it depends on what like the organization wants. So I've only ever like taught workshops based on what other people want. So basically, if it's like finding, it's learning how to do photography or learning how to shoot on an iPhone or anything like that, those are things that I can deliver and like have been successful. But also things like, okay, how do you incorporate like navigating your mental health through photography or things like that, like either workshops or speaking events like I've done, and they have been always like such a great learning opportunity, I think. And I think it really means something when somebody speaks about their experience. It like, teaches a lot. But I've also like I've taught programming to other entrepreneurs and stuff like that for about a year, and that was really cool. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's like, yeah, it's been really fun. It's been, again, a great learning opportunity. I would definitely be doing workshops. I'll be doing a lot more workshops in the near future for sure.
So you mentioned, well, congratulations with all that work. Like that's just keeping busy, getting the bag. Okay. Um, you mentioned being like kind of navigating your mental health around your profession, your photography.
Mhm.
So how do you manage your mental health when you're with all this work here and with everything that you're doing and everything that you have going on? I'm sure it probably takes a toll on your mental health. So how do you kind of deal with that, and how do you kind of just stay leveled and kind of just you?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't have like the capacity to do research on therapy. Now I'm in therapy. Like I see a therapist like once a week, and I love her. And like it's been such a great eye-opening experience. And it's just been, just learning more about yourself, but also like learning about how your upbringing and everything just affects everything, you know, and like all of that stuff. So it's been really like now I just do therapy. Like that's today, like I'm going to therapy regularly, but I'm also like finding a new love for outdoors. Like I never thought I was really an outdoors person, and now I'm outdoors all the time and I love it. And I find that that also really helps me in my mental health. But before, like when like this point last year, like everything was just kind of starting to pick up and I didn't know where to start with how to navigate, okay, like being busy all the time. And so I was working two full-time jobs last year, my photography business and a different job. So like it was really hard to navigate, and always having to be on was also really interesting to be doing. And so I never really felt like I had the safe space to really be genuinely myself and to be, and you know, again, just safe. But navigating the mental health portion has always just been super interesting because it's still, I don't think it's as taboo now. I think a lot of people are opening up about mental health struggles and like how that affects them in their everyday life. And I think it's beautiful. And I think, you know, I hope it gets talked about a lot more. But again, like nobody, when you say like you're dealing with stuff like in your head, it's like, it's not like an open cut that you can see physically, you know, it's like, it's hard for people to understand like that you have this open wound in your head, but nobody can see it. Right. And so it's like, how do you explain that to people? And I've had like employers that I've worked for in the past, like I've told them like, okay, like I am dealing with a lot right now. And last year there was a lot of deaths and like, you know, and even this year, but last year was like a really eye-opening time for that in our, especially in our region, because a lot of that was like, you know, although like I wasn't ever really close with these people personally, it's still, you know, they're still a part of us. Yeah. And they're still like, we grew up together in some cases, you know, and like, and that takes a lot of time to grieve. And when I was working full time for a different organization, like they just didn't understand that. And it's like, okay, well, how do you, and then that really taught me like, okay, how do you really explain your mental health to somebody? Because it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, if one person can't get it and they're supposed to be like your supporter in terms of like, you know, your employment or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, how does that work out? But I think like now I'm fortunate enough to be able to kind of take time to myself if I need to, knowing that I do make my own schedule, knowing that I am flexible. So like nowadays, like when I am dealing with a lot of like mental health like challenges, I definitely learned that taking time to myself in terms of like being outdoors and things like that really helps me. But again, therapy's been really helping with me navigating everything and also work. But you know, I know like not everyone is fortunate enough to like have to be able to work for themselves. So I think at the end of the day, it's also learning how to be transparent and also a little bit vulnerable. Like I know it's really hard for some, like for me, it's really, for personally for me, it's really hard to be vulnerable. It's really hard to like open up to people. It's really hard, especially like when it's your line of work and you want to be professional all the time. But you know, we all have our bad days, and it's like, I think as long as you can try to be open and honest about that, then I would only hope that, you know, the people that you're working for, if you're working for anyone or if you're working for yourself, that's great, but that they're gentle with you too, and that they understand. Because like at the, like not everyone understands what happens, you know, what goes on in our heads, you know, and it's it can get a little wild up there. So yeah, I think just taking time to yourself, you know, and whatever that looks like for you, and just being gentle with your own self too, because like our minds are so powerful. Like it really like can switch up our moods, you know, and like switch up how our perspectives and how we see life. And like it's just such a powerful thing. So I think it's very much like, you know, just remember that at the end of the day, everything's going to work out and everything's going to be okay, even if it feels like in the moment it's not going to.
Yeah. So within recovery, to say just one day at a time, and it's just really that simple, you know, like your your mind is just, it is such a powerful thing. You're right, and it kind of puts everything, like your whole life into perspective for you. It's like if you are having like negative thoughts, bad thoughts, thinking, and it's just like that's what your life's going to be, because that's the energy you're putting out. And you're
Mhm.
going to always look for the bad in everything. You're never going to be satisfied. Instead of being like that, you could just be like, like be grateful for what you have and where you are, the roof over your head, the water in your tap, and just kind of, just be happy with it, what you have, because I promise you, there's people out there who are far less fortunate than you are, right? We are, and it's just, I don't know, like with me, I feel like that's how I kind of go now. Like that's how I get like kind of move around. I don't let things get to me too much. The only time that something gets to me is when like spend like fuck $40 on a plate of food and then they give it to me, it's shit. But normally I'm okay. Like it's just like, well, it's kind of like just being in control of your mind, and kind of just being like putting yourself in a like in a way, kind of, what am I trying to say, like when, say, things that are happening that you don't like, and you just kind of have to like accept it for what it is, and not react in a way that might put you in like a bad space, just kind of accept it and be and move forward. Or if things are happy too, this is like the weirdest thing. This is, I don't know if this is the same topic, but then it's in the realm of mental health. Like with me, like I bought a new car, and I remember like just being there. I didn't even feel anything, and then that lady, she was just like, "Oh, congratulations!" Like everybody around me was happier than I was about it, and more excited for me than I was, and and you know what I mean. It was just weird, and then um, it didn't hit me until like 2 weeks later, when I was like, "Oh fuck! I really like my car, and this is awesome." Like it's just, and then it finally, like, it kind of just like caught up to me, and then I was like, "But that's weird. What is that?" And I kind of, well, I don't know if you were paying attention to me, then you would know that I just recently entered into recovery. How long did I think um, I think about like four, almost 4 weeks out of rehab, a treatment center.
Wow.
Yeah, I learned from there too. Like it's just kind of like your emotions, and it kind of just comes flooding back after you sober up and stuff, right? So I think that maybe that might be it. I think there was like a little delay in my head, but so there's that. And with this whole mental health thing, I am too. I'm happy that everybody's like being more open about it and talking about it. And I think that in the past it was always kind of swept under the rug. You know what I mean? And then now there's like people, I don't want to name names, but in my life, and then they're like coming up to me and telling me too, like, "Oh, I have anxiety now," or "I have anxiety, that's what that was," or "I was depressed," and they didn't know what it was, because nobody would talk about it. And now that people are finally be open with it and then sharing their experiences, now people are like, "Oh shit, like that's what that was, like I feel that too," and I think that's great. And having something like this, so that we can like talk and share our experiences with everybody, so it might be like a listener, and then they'll hear you and what you're going through, and then they'll just feel like, "Oh, I'm not alone." Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's great. So with this mental health, with when I was listening to your podcast, you talk about it a lot, and so you said that you have a therapist, and you try to navigate. But how do you navigate though? Like exactly, like what are your actions, and what's like your thought process?
I think again that there's no like handbook on how to really navigate your mental health, and like you can have tools in your tool belt, you can have certain things that you use to cope with, like when you're when you're going through stuff. Like for example, with me, like I when I'm going through anxiety, I do as simple as like, okay, just breathe, and then just reminding myself like it's going to be okay. But I know for some people it's not as easy as that, like there's different tools for everything. And so I think with I think what really helps me is like, okay, like if I'm having a really bad day, I like to be able to, okay, at least, this week I'm seeing my therapist so I can talk to her about it. Or, have a friend that have a friend that you can talk to. I think like if anything, talking about your feelings, it might not feel like you're doing a lot, but it does so much. And like it really does help to really just kind of talk it out. Even if you don't have a therapist, if you have a friend, talk it out, do whatever you have to do, like reach out to somebody. And I know it's like so much easier said than done because I was in so many instances where I felt like really alone and I felt like, very hopeless in my life. And I also felt like I didn't have anyone that I could reach out to, but at the end of the day, I think it's like, okay, if you're really going through something and you really want to like help, you really want to support yourself in that sense. I don't know how to like really explain this, but
I would say like maybe just really focusing on you and what makes you tick, like what
but
if
that also takes a lot of work, and I'm trying to also, so for me personally, like when I was, learning about my triggers, when I was learning about like, okay, what makes me frustrated, what gives me anxiety, and like learning all these little new things about me that I actually never really learned about before, or even just as simple as talking about your emotions, it's also new and it can be overwhelming. So it's like just take it again, like one step at a time. Don't force yourself to go in through anything if you don't have to. Or like don't force yourself to do something you don't want to do. So for a really long time, like I always told myself, okay, Jamie, you have to do therapy. You have to do therapy. But it wasn't until this year that I really like took it seriously. And I was like, okay, like I can't be preaching about doing the work if I'm not doing the work myself. So there's a lot of stuff that, especially again, when I mentioned earlier, your upbringing really affects you now too. So for example, like I grew up in a really like, I wouldn't say really, but I grew up in an abusive household. Like I grew up in a household where, and this is probably very like you might be able to relate to this, but like nobody talks about their emotions. Nobody knows how to communicate. Nobody, and the communication that we grew up with is just yelling and fighting and arguing and like drinking and all of that stuff. And like that was my normal growing up. And so
I think that was so normal for a lot of us.
yeah. And so when I now like learning that, that stuff isn't actually normal, like, it's not healthy, especially when you're a toddler or when you're a young, adult or like a teenager, like growing up in like that type of household really can affect you in your adult life. And there's a lot of things that I'm also learning today, like about myself, like in terms of like how to even communicate, like I don't, even to this day, I don't even really know how to communicate my feelings effectively. And if something bothers me, like I've always just learned to bottle it up and not say anything. But now it's like, okay, I'm learning how to say these things because one, it would get it off my chest and at least the other person knows how they feel or knows how I feel. And then it also makes me feel better too, because then I'm like, okay, I got it off of like, I said something, that's all I can do. And that's it. And it's like, but it takes a lot of work to get there too, like it doesn't happen overnight. But I think what is really beautiful is learning about yourself, and like, I think although, we are in our own bodies every day, we're dealing with our emotions in our mind every day. Like, it's just so interesting to know, like, there's so much more that you can learn, about yourself, but also about how to, to really like cope with mental health struggles when the time comes. Because for a long time it was like I was turning to alcohol, and I was turning to that stuff to get my mind off of whatever I was thinking about. And I didn't have a healthy relationship with that at all. And I still, to this day, it's like it's definitely better than what it used to be, but it's taken a long time to get there.
Okay. So where are you now in like your headspace? Are you like better than you were before? I know that's what you just said, but I mean like in terms of like do you feel happy?
You know, that's a really good question. I was talking to my therapist the other day and I was like, what does happiness even really feel like? Like because I always thought it was one thing, but maybe it's a different thing. And I would say I'm not like 100% happy, but I'm definitely very content with where I'm at right now and like in terms of my mental health. And also where I'm at in my life. Like I'm very content. I'm very, fortunate to be where I am. And so it's definitely a privilege, and like I'm very grateful. And so I'm definitely like just yeah, just very content and very grateful for where, how everything's ending up right now.
Yeah, because like I think that you being open about your mental health is such a big thing and an important thing because like somebody from the outside looking in, looking at you, they might be like, oh, look, she has this, she has that, she's doing so great here, she's at like the peak of her life and stuff. She's so like so young, she has all these things going on, and then they might think that you have it all figured out and then you're like just perfect, and then so you being like, no, no, there's I'm going through some shit, I'm just like you. I think that's like a lot of that's kind of like reassurance and kind of like it humanizes you, like it's and not everything is like sunshine and rainbows. Okay, everybody has their bad days and stuff. So and everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had like youth from the community, who watch my social media, who know me through my online presence, and I think it's really great. And and I'm also like, um, they come up to me and they're like, Jamie, it looks like you're always doing something like online. You're always on the go. You're always doing something, and like they're like, I wish my life was just like yours. But then that really like clicked for me, and I was like, wait, although I only ever want to post good things, about my life online. I also have to remember, like, wait, I don't want to give off this persona that my life is perfect because it is not. It's far from that. And so I only ever want people to be like, okay, like, you know, she I don't know like how I want really people to perceive me in my life, but all I know is that whatever I post online, it's like, yes, it's very much a highlight reel. It's like you're not seeing everything behind the scenes, you're not seeing the ins and out of it, you're not seeing the struggle. And like, because I only want people to feel good about themselves, I want them to feel happy when they come to my content. But I also think, yeah, it's important to like maybe touch base on like some things, like sometimes, and so like when it comes to mental health and stuff like that, and especially just like having to navigate all of that, it's definitely a learning curve. Like I again have not mastered it at all, and I don't think I'm ever going to master it, but it's definitely something I do want to explore. But also like just letting people know, like, hey, you know, I appreciate that you look up to me and like as a role model and like as a friend, but just know like I also like go through my fair share of mental health issues as well. So it's like it's not all, again, like you said, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies and whatever, and it's not all happy over here.
Yeah, and it's just about like learning to accept it, and that's always going
Mhm.
to be there until you are 6 feet under, and it's okay, you don't have to be all like happy and fucking goofy and shit like all every day. You can't, and not everything happens like the way you want it to as well. So and you just kind of have to do the best you can with what you have and just be thankful and grateful, because it could always get worse. It could always get worse. If you think, oh, my life's shitty right now, and then this is it, and then it can go way worse. And but so it's just, I think that social media, and it kind of like puts this kind of like I guess like kind of like a smoke. There's like, you know what I mean? Like it just like makes and when because nobody puts out like the bad things in their life. It's always put out the perfect selfie, and they always post like only like the positive things that's happening in their life. And so nobody really posts about the bad things that they're going through, because they don't want to be judged or whatever the case is. And so that's why I like how you do that, and it shows like both sides, because it's not always perfect, and it's okay. It's okay because it's just you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be like you're gonna be fine at the end of the day anyway. You know, it's
Mhm.
yeah. So bad day, may have a bad day, but go to sleep and tomorrow might be better. Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like again, it takes a lot of work to get to a good, I think, point in your life where you know how to navigate your triggers and things like that. So like, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like at the end of the day, like, you know, you kind of just have to take it one day at a time. And it's hard to do because again, when you're in that very low spot in your life and you're in that moment where you're like feeling hopeless and like just not like not in the right headspace, it's like it's really hard to get out of it in the moment. But like, you know, just at the end of the day, it's like, okay,
Yeah, and
maybe I just need to take a breather right now and just like come back to this issue later type of thing.
yeah. Just don't let things like tear you down and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like yeah, going back like being in that headspace too, it is like if you are like depressed and just bedridden, like it's I'm talking about like you don't want to shower, you don't want to do the dishes, you don't want to
Mhm.
do your laundry or something. You can't really like it's just like your mind just won't allow you to do it. And I think that a lot of people don't get that, you know, just be like, oh, that person's just lazy or whatever. It's like,
Mhm.
no, like they just can't do it. They can't get up, you know.
Yeah.
It's a mental thing.
It's I've been at that point, you know, and like I've been there, especially like in the recent months. Like it's gotten to a point where like yeah, I was in bed for like 3 days at some points and like, you know, couldn't get out of bed. But I'm very fortunate right now to be living with a good support system. So like I live with my one of my really good friends, Nolene, and over the last like few months I've definitely opened up to her and I've definitely been like, hey, like just so you know, like I'm going through a day right now. I'm going through a really low point. Like, and it's not sometimes it's not even necessarily that anything like triggers it, you know. Sometimes you just wake up and it's actually just like you're going through it, you know. There's just things catching up to you and like, and again, like I was and well, going back to the support system, I think it's really important, you know, to at least have one person there that you're comfortable with and that they're, you know, that they feel like your safe zone. And for me right now in my life, it's Nolene. And like, so when I tell her like I'm going through a bad day, like I don't expect her to do anything. I just want her to know. But then on her end, sometimes she like, you know, cooks me a meal. Sometimes she's like, hey, Jamie, you know, can we go for a walk or whatever? And like those little things, like I don't ask her to do that, but they really help, especially when you're going through such a rough time. And I get it. Like even when I was living alone, it was really hard to do, you know, like to be on my own and like not have that support system. And like it's definitely like just it's I don't know, it's really hard in the moment for sure. But I was talking to I forgot where I was going with that. I was talking to my therapist and we were talking about
Support system or
I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, I'll come back to me later.
awesome.
But I
Maybe
think
support system is what you're talking about, or
I was talking about a support system, but there was something else I wanted to mention that it just like left my head. But it'll come back to me later and I'll just like
with
bring it up.
what I think like with I think that a support system is really healthy and it's really helpful and I think that's it. Always having like that connection with people, whoever it is, you know, it could be anybody in your life, and just maintaining that relationship with them, and just not being alone. Don't isolate. I know that with me, I'm like an introvert and a loner. I love my own space. I love just me, and so I get very like when I isolate and when I'm alone, I feel very comfortable. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I put on shows in my head. I'm good. You know what I mean? I listen to music. I can watch a movie. And that that's kind of like like it's satisfying, you know? And so but then I always felt like, oh, I'm good. I'm good alone. I don't need anybody. I'm good. And then so I've lived like that for like a long time. I did that for way too long. And I thought that that was me being independent. That was me being strong. And but then like when I really look back at it, that was just my insecurities. That was just me kind of being afraid of the unknown. That's why I always stayed in my comfort zone and not putting myself out there, because I was in fear of like rejection, or like kind of maybe, they're not gonna get me, they won't like me, and or like, just I always kind of felt like nobody understood me and nobody got me, and so that's why I kind of just stayed like to myself and stuff. And then it wasn't until like I got a little older, and then very recently actually, yeah, and I just kind of like put myself out there, even with this whole podcast thing, and I was just like, I really don't even care. Like, what the hell? So I was just like, I'm just gonna be me and do me, and if they like it, cool. If they don't, then that's okay too. And I think that just kind of maintaining that connection with people and being around people and being social, and that's going to take bring more out of you, because you can like feed off of each
Mhm.
other, your energy. If you even if like you don't feel like talking, you could just, if you have like somebody in your life that you could just go and chill with, like
Yeah.
you don't need to
I think
talk.
it takes a certain type of bravery and a certain type of like encouragement to really be able to tell yourself like, okay, like wait, I I like being alone and I like my comfort zone, but this, I need to be
Not working
social. I need
anymore.
to put myself out there a little bit. And even that, like even putting yourself out there to make new friends, to make new connections, that takes a lot of, you know, that takes a lot of bravery sometimes. And so like kind of backtracking to what I wanted to say earlier. So I was talking to my therapist about feeling big emotions. And so right now, her and I, some of the work that we're doing is like really kind of just talking about my past and like just, just about my upbringing and like, okay, this is why I think this way and this is why I think this way or whatever, right? And so I told her, I don't know if you know this, but my dad like passed away when I was really young. Like he drowned. He was a fisherman. And then shortly after that, my sister passed away. She had like a disability and she passed away from a heart attack. She was 16, but her life expectancy was 12. So she lived past her life expectancy. Both my grandparents passed away. My godmother passed away. I've had tons of friends, unfortunately, like pass away as well. But these are moments like I never really knew how to grieve, And like I was telling a friend the other day, um, by the time I'm done grieving someone, two other people have already passed away in that moment, in that grieving period. And so I was telling my therapist, like, I don't know why is it only now after many years have passed, like my dad passed away when I was like 3 or 4 years old, why is it only 20 years later am I finally going through those emotions of grief, like why is it affecting me now? My sister, she passed away in 2009 or 2006. She passed away in 2006, and like why is it only now am I grieving her loss, like, or like her presence, like it's so interesting how these emotions like over time just catch up to you. And so at the end of the day, like when we were talking about earlier, like when we're in bed and we can't get up for 3 days and like we're like, okay, sometimes you don't even get triggered, sometimes you just wake up and it's a bad day. And I was talking to my therapist about like these big emotions, and I was like, why is it only now I'm taking, why is it only now like this stuff is catching up to me, like why couldn't it have happened earlier or like whatever, right? And she was saying that as an adult, especially like when you get older, sometimes you just don't know how to allow yourself to grieve, and it's like you don't know how to, you're just actually giving yourself that space and that time now. And or like even just like you're thinking about it and it just happens, like it just kind of pops up. So when in April this past year, I took an unintentional like break. So for all of April and most of May, I just wasn't working on photography stuff. I just wasn't focused on that. I was going through a lot of like mental health like challenges and like I was out all the time and I wasn't doing therapy then. But then at the end of April, I finally was like, okay, all of April, I was just so down and low and like depressed. And it was a very interesting time because it was unintentional. Like I didn't think it was, I thought I was going to be working and stuff, but then I had to cancel trips and I had to, work trips and things like that because of how bad it got. And it was like, okay, but how, like, I was always like wondering like, okay, why am I only thinking about this stuff now? Why is it only bothering me now, type of thing. And yeah, so it's like very interesting to like have to go through, and especially like, as somebody who depends on themselves for income, it's like it's also like really hard to like navigate that point, that like that stuff. But I think like now, with the resources we have today, it's like really important to reflect, but also maybe to understand like, okay, these thoughts, these emotions, they are valid and they are like, there are a part of you, but again, like there are things that I need to personally work on, and so that's what really encouraged me to like reach out to a therapist and was like, hey, like I've noticed, these patterns in my life right now, and I really want to know why this is happening, and I really want to understand like this more. So scheduled a consultation, got to know them, and then now like we've been working together since, and like it's been great.
I think that like recognizing it is the first big step, and that's
Mhm.
like a big part of it. It's just recognizing that it's there, even if you don't try to I guess redirect it or try to make a better decision or try to just change it in any way. Just you don't have to do it, just as long as you recognize that it's there and accept the good and the bad, because there's always going to be both in everything in life, right? And wanted to ask too about this therapy. And then I don't think like a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to be able to just pay for a therapist. I'd say like
So it's funny that you say that. So I was also kind of in that boat too, where I was like, okay, I, don't necessarily want to like have to pay whatever amounts of money, or like maybe I don't have that, just disposable, But I think right now, especially with like everything with like, I don't, okay, so trigger warning, I don't want this to like bring up any crazy emotions, but residential school. So my grandma went to residential school, and like her brother did as well, or her son. And so because of that, I can access therapy for free. And so all you need is like really one relative, or like, that has been to residential school. And so I do my therapy for free through this like program called the IRS, like counseling, whatever. But it's all like, you get up to 62 hours a year and of free like therapy. And so that is something that I'm doing. That's something I'm taking advantage of, especially, when you want to work through your trauma and you want to like, and you have that at your, at your resource.
I have that. I'm fortunate enough to have that too. I'm able to go in that program as well because my parents both went to residential school.
Mhm.
So I have that, but I don't. It's it's kind of like limited a little bit as like where you can go and stuff. So I just kind of first I use my employer's stuff first, and then I go on to that.
Yeah, so I was recommended the therapist that I'm seeing now through my friend who's been seeing her for like, over 5 years.
Mm.
And she also accesses the same program, and so it's really cool, I think, right now, especially when not really cool that everything has happened and why it is free now, but it's such a helpful resource to have,
Yeah,
especially even if you have like a long distance relative or anyone in your family like line. Like, so for me, when I was filling out the form, I knew my grandma went, but I didn't know what year she went. And I also unfortunately don't know what year she was born. So like those are kind of the key informations that they ask you to fill out. But then, I just asked my therapist, I was like, hey, I know my grandma who went, but I don't know the year that she was born, or I don't know like the year that she went to school. And she was like, that's okay. Like, she was like, we're just going to put a name down. And she was like, worst case is that they deny and we have to get that information. And I'm sure, like, you know, my uncles and stuff, they have that information that I could have just asked them. But like, she just put the name down and it got, you know, it went through. So now that it could be as simple as that, even if it's asking for, because I've seen the form and it's like a pretty intense it's a pretty intense form,
Yeah.
but if you can just ask for help to like fill it out, I'm sure, you know, the person that you're working with could do that for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even if you don't have access to a program like that, you can just go to the it's free with the community, right? In indigenous communities, I'm pretty sure they have like
I feel like it might be, but definitely don't quote me on that. Like, honestly, but then at this point, like when it comes to like even your mental health, like anything, like sort of like same with business, it's like any questions that you have, it's like if you want to be able to access free therapy, I'm sure that there are resources in your area.
or
It's
like
as
online too.
simple as, yeah, it's just as simple as Googling. Like, there's also, even if you feel like you don't want that weekly support, there's helplines, you know, when you're feeling like, you know, that sense of hopelessness and like that sense of like really low, like depressive feelings. Like, there's hotlines that you can access for free, you know, within Canada, but also in the Northwest Territories. I know that there's one. So it's like being able to access those could be very helpful in the time of need for sure.
Yeah, and I'd say too, like if even if you don't want to talk to somebody, just look at people in your circle or in your community. If you see somebody who's like, you know, shining and it looks like they're doing good in their life and it looks like they have it figured out somewhat, and just kind of like just ask them, you know, ask them like what do they do, like their routines, and you know, and I bet you like there's a just kind of like trying to like mirror them a little bit, you know what I mean? Like because it's working, right? If they're doing something right and they're doing something that you're not doing, that's that's improving their life. So just try to like see what that is and maybe incorporate it into your own. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do. Like, you know what I mean? Whenever I see somebody who's better at something than I am, or they have something that I want, and then I go like, oh, okay, like I want that too. So what do I have to do to get that too, or get there as well?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like putting the bottle down, that made a big fucking difference, and going to rehab too, and it kind of just took away like a lot of like the smoke and the fog, and now I just feel like I'm like more clear and more driven and motivated and just happier too as well. And
Which is great. That's awesome to see.
so yeah, thank you. And so it's just like, and I didn't. And everybody else said like, you know, just get sober, get sober, get sober. But I would always see people who were sober. They always like look grumpy and stuff, and then or like they're just kind of like unhappy. And I was like, why would I want to be like them, you know? But then I just like realized too, like that's no, it's just everybody has their own journey, and then them they are just kind of like not doing like the step work, or like doing like you know, going to the gym, eating healthier, being open with their feelings and stuff. So they kind of bottle it all in, and that's why they're grumpy. So that's how like I kind of like learned about a lot about myself too as well with in this whole like recovery journey, is that I'm one of those people who has to I guess solve or find solutions to those problems in my head like right away, because otherwise it's gonna just be right in my face until I do that. You know what I mean? Like it could be like a small little thing, just like this before we started. That remember I said that I needed that paper. I felt I would feel a lot better if it was like
Mhm.
there kind of a thing, because if I didn't do that, I would keep on thinking about it, thinking about it. So I just kind of I know that's kind of like a little not
No, no, it's totally valid. I completely understand that. Like, I'm the same way. Like,
if it
so this past like week when I was in Gamity and I was photographing the event, I accidentally forgot my camera strap here. And so my camera strap is like something I rely on very heavily for my work. And I've never used my camera just like free-handed, like in my hand, like or whatever. And so it was great that the school in Gamity, like the teacher there, he had like a couple of cameras for the students and stuff, and they had straps, so I just borrowed their strap.
Yeah.
But it just makes such a difference. It makes you feel like, you're more at ease and things like that. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I
That example.
experience that all the time.
Yeah, I used to, because like I don't know what it is, but I just don't um like obstacles in my way that kind of, it just makes me feel uncomfortable, And so how I deal with that is just like I try to fix it, and if I can't, then I'll ask for help, and if that's not working, then I'll just kind of be like, okay, it's fine. It's not that serious, or maybe I might go a different route. It's just a
Mhm.
kind of like a mindset kind of a thing. And anyways, I feel like we've been this is maybe we should go a little lighter route, eh?
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, mental health is
No,
very
I've appreciated all the questions so far. And like, honestly, it's definitely something that is important to talk about. And so I'm glad that we gave it the time and the space to really honor these emotions and like these experiences. So, yeah, let's definitely, what's your next question there?
yeah. So I saw on your podcast there. Yeah, I was listening on your podcast. You seeing someone?
Not anymore.
No.
And not anymore. Yeah, no, dating has been, if we want to talk about dating a little bit, dating has been very interesting. And I was telling, friends of mine, dating can also be really fun. And so I've learned how to accept it in a fun way. Like, okay, I'm just getting to know a new friend. That's kind of my mindset going into dating right now, is like, okay, I'm just learning, I'm just getting to know somebody as a friend right now. And then if it goes anywhere romantically, then great. And if it doesn't, at least I've met somebody really cool, and hopefully we can be connected on some level that we can become friends. But yeah, I was seeing somebody for quite a bit, and it unfortunately didn't work out, but that's okay, because I feel like I've learned, I never really take dating, and like when you break up with somebody, like I'm learning to not take it as like a complete loss. I'm learning to kind of just take it, as a learning opportunity, also just as an experience, because I feel like when you're dating somebody, that's an experience in itself. And I was telling my therapist, for whatever reason, I learn the most about myself when it comes to dating. When I'm seeing somebody, I'm learning how to be a bit more vulnerable every single time. I'm learning how to talk about my emotions with them on a different level than being more than just friends. Because it takes a lot of work to really be open in that sense too, especially when you are with a romantic partner, because everyone has their own needs, and everyone, their needs are all different. So it's like really learning how, as a partner, like as a, hopefully a partner in the future to somebody, like I would love to be able to make that person feel good about themselves all the time, and I want to only ever really be able to meet their needs the same way that they meet my needs, right? And so dating a Yellowknife has also been very interesting. It's, Yellowknife is just so small, and it's just so like everyone knows everyone. Fortunately, the people that I've been dating in the last little bit, like luckily, I don't think that they know each other, which is great. And I don't think we're all in the same friend group, so that's good too. But I was on a date recently, like maybe 2 weeks ago or something. We went out to the Monkey Tree to play pool, and we were there. And then I was actually the day before on a different date with a different guy. And we ran into him and his friends at the Monkey Tree. And I was on a date with a different guy. So it's just like, it's so funny how that happens. And that literally would only happen in the North, like where you run into people when you're, you know, dating and stuff. But it,
what did you do?
sorry?
What did you do when you saw that other guy you were dating?
Well, he came up to me and he was
Right.
like, "Hi." And I was like, "Oh, hey." I was like, "This is so and so." And I was with the other guy. And then he was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, "Yeah." And so basically, I try to not make it awkward, but sometimes it can just come naturally that it is a bit awkward. But at the end of the day, I think if two people have the understanding that they're not in a relationship, and that dating is like you're seeing kind of multiple people at once, maybe, just for fun or whatever. It's like there has to be that understanding and that communication there too. Because I've been in situations where, people have thought that they might be in a relationship or whatever, but it was never really disclosed. It was never discussed.
Like they
And
thought that
so,
they're in a relationship with you, but it wasn't that serious for you.
yeah, technically something like that. And so it's very important, I think, that I've learned over the last little bit of because of dating is that communication is so key. Communication is so important. Um, and also like knowing what you want. Because for a long time, I was just dating people to date, like, but I didn't know what I wanted. And so now I've really learned that, what I want in a partner and all of the stuff only because I've been putting myself out there a little bit.
So shacking up
Which
at
has been
auntie's house
fun.
or anything like that.
Sorry?
So no shacking up at auntie's house or anything like that.
Not here. Not here, Vernon. No, Auntie's busy. Auntie's on the go. She has no time for that.
So how do you like? Let's say like okay, wait, like how does like because you have it all like going on, right? We and self-made and all this shit. Like how I would think that might be a little intimidating for some guys, like to just to go up to you and kind of hit, like you know what I mean, like try it. And do you have anything to say about that? Like maybe get some words of encouragement or something. Maybe
That is a really great question. And I for a long time, like I thought it was, I don't know, like I mean, I I've been only told a handful of times, like, oh, you know, that's Jamie, like, and she does this and this. And like I think if anything that's intimidating about what I do for work is my social media presence. I think if anything, that is like kind of the most intimidating part. The guy that I was recently seeing, that's something he's mentioned. And he was like, okay, like, he's like, there's things I have to get used to. He was like, but you're just so like unique and different and like, well, different. But he was just like, you're so, he was definitely very, very kind and also very respectful of my work. And also like, he understood that I wanted to take up, podcasting and I wanted to do vlogging and all of this stuff. And he was very supportive of that. And I think at the end of the day, if they can just be supportive of it, that's all you really need in a partner, especially when you want to explore new creative outlets or anything like that. So for me, for example, would be like YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Like I'm not asking them to film it for me. I'm not asking them to be in these videos with me. I'm just asking them to be like, hey, this is happening in my life. This is what I do. I'm putting it out on the table. If it bothers you, let me know. Because then that just means we're not the right fit for each other. And I think the right person is going to support you no matter what you do. And so
so
I,
so 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 if you're a guy listening, you're gonna have to be comfortable with her being a hard worker and having a public social life. And yeah, then you should be just fine, right?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, also, um, I think a big thing for me that I've learned when it comes to wanting to meet somebody or like wanting something in somebody, like I think as long as they have something that I've learned recently about myself, actually, it's just like I love when people have their own ambitions. I love when people have their own stuff going on, like it doesn't have to be like business related at all, but like if they love, hiking or like fixing vehicles or like doing videography or like being outdoors or anything like that, like as long as it's like their thing and they like to do it, like that is really attractive to me. And I'm like, because I'm also doing that too, I have my own thing going on. And I think it's really important, especially as somebody who's been who's motivated to kind of just try something new all the time. It's like I also want that in a partner as well. Like I want somebody who is just as down as I am to try to go out and experience life, but also who does have their own thing going on as well. Cause I would hate like not hate, but it would really like bother me if I'm like out doing my own thing and they're kind of just like not doing anything for themselves type of
Sitting
thing.
on the couch, just sitting on.
Yeah, but I mean, like at the end of the day, I get it. Everyone goes through their own stuff, but like that's just not the type of person I'm attracted to right now.
Yeah, I think that's every. I feel like everybody has to have their own thing going on. Like
Mhm.
it's just you can't just let life pass by you, and well, you're just not trying anything or doing anything. It could be anything. Just try it. Go ahead, go do it.
Yeah, and I've had my fair share of dating where I've met people who just, are not genuine, who just genuinely are not interested in like bettering themselves and like who just don't want to do things. So like that I've learned quickly, like I'm not attracted to that anymore. And it's definitely something I've learned over time. But
Like
yeah.
sticky too. It's like sticky because it could. Sometimes it might like say if you're at a kind of a vulnerable point in your life, those traits from those people, like those unmotivated ones, those ungrateful ones, the ones who just don't want to do anything, don't want to get better, it could rub off on you too as well.
Yeah, and I think energy is really important, and like I think when you bring good energy or when you bring bad energy, like even if we say like we don't take that on, we take that on sometimes, like we take on a part of that. And like so when I'm like with somebody new, like I only ever want to feel good about myself, but I also want them to feel good about themselves. And like a lot of that comes from the energy that you give off too. So I I definitely think that's really important to like look out for. And especially when you're dating somebody new, if I'm going to give any unsolicited dating advice here,
Go
Pay
ahead.
attention to how you feel. Like pay attention to how you feel when you're with them. If you feel like very tense and like tight in the sense like you feel like you can't be comfortable with them with in your body, like if you feel like you need to be very like to yourself and kept to, like then that might be a sign that they're not your person. But I've always felt like I've connected the best with people that I can be fully comfortable with, like with my body, but also with the way, I talk and like the things I have to say and all of that stuff. Like I only ever want, that to be transparent too. So like I think when you're dating somebody and you feel like you're putting yourself out there but you don't know what you want, pay attention to how your body reacts cuz like that's a big I for me at least was a big telling sign.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll take that advice too. So, oh yeah, BuzzFeed. You have some shit going on with BuzzFeed? Are we talking about like BuzzFeed that has like millions of followers?
No, I don't actually.
You said
So basically there was this contest that was going on with them and I was going to enter into it, but I didn't enter into it. Like it was just like it was a fun contest. But yeah, it just never ended up happening. But I do for sure, it's definitely like a dream of mine to be working with them on some capacity. So I
they're
think it's gonna
huge.
happen soon.
They are fucking huge. They're everywhere.
Yeah. No,
I was
it's
like,
so
holy
cool.
shit, Jamie's got something going on with BuzzFeed. What?
No, it was just like a contest I wanted to enter and it just like we never made it happen. So like it was fine. But and it was like such a short like notice of time too. So it didn't give us enough time to really like enter into this contest. But um yeah, I'm hoping the next time something comes up or like I'm hoping that I can work with them in the future, whatever that looks like. But I know that they do a lot of cool stuff and like I take a lot of inspiration from them. So that'd be really cool one day to like work with them.
Yeah, I know. Like seeing them and watching their videos, like that would it's like well, for one, it's entertaining, but it's also kind of gives you like that little feeling of like, oh, like it's doable. You can do that. You can do it too. Because I think
Mhm.
like that was like kind of like one of like the first big platforms that I've seen that would do things that I like. So that was nice too. And I hate to say this, but I have somewhere that I have to be in like half hour.
No, I mean like we should end off. So I
Yes.
feel like
So I
we had such a great conversation and I'm so excited to see, when this episode comes out and
today.
all of the fun stuff. It's gonna be awesome to listen to.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run and do my thing, and then I'll publish it today. So thank you for coming. Like just hearing your perspective on things and your outlook is just amazing, especially for somebody as young as you. And you have it going on. Like there's something about you. I think I could just like feel it, even though you're just like kind of on like a computer screen. You have it, whatever it is, you have it. It's great. It's great to see, someone who's same from the same place that I am, and who's as intelligent and beautiful and hardworking and motivated, and just it's great to see. And I know that there's like a lot of people who are gonna like listen to this or watch it and just kind of they're gonna walk away from it like with a whole like new like kind of even more respect for you than they already have. It's great. I learned so much about you just in this time here, and I look forward to linking up. Maybe the next one will be in person.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'm actually traveling to Ottawa at the end of July, and I have an overnight stay in Edmonton. So maybe if you're in the area when I'm there, we can definitely do something. I think it'd be so much fun.
Yeah. I'll be here at the end of July. Yeah, cause I don't know
Cool.
when my work schedule's gonna be.
I do have plans to be there very soon too, so I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you in the loop. But Vernon, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on your podcast, and I just hope I just know you're gonna make it, and one day I'm gonna be able to like say, "Oh my God, I was one of his first guests," and and now he's like this big celebrity. You're gonna do great things, and it's all a learning curve, but it's gonna be awesome. I'm so excited to see where it takes you. So thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Take care, and we'll stay in touch. So that concludes another episode of Vernon's podcast. Thank you, Jamie, for coming through. That was amazing. Love how she conducts herself. I don't even think she even swore once. That's like business head right there. So yeah, thank you all. Remember, stay grateful, be nice, be kind, and support one another. God protect us from all that has not been sent from you. Thank you, Musty Cho. Everybody have a good day.